The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with tension as emergency alarms echoed through its transparent walls. Representatives from thousands of worlds had gathered in record time, their varied forms creating a rainbow of alien life across the tiered seating. Some floated in containment fields filled with methane, others stood on multiple legs, and a few existed as pure energy contained within mechanical bodies. Ambassador Veltar of the Centauri Federation crashed all four of his muscular arms against the speaker's podium, his blue-scaled face twisted with rage and disbelief as his voice boomed through the chamber's acoustic amplifiers. 300 ships, he roared, his throat sacs inflating with each word. The entire third assault fleet of the Draconian Empire has vanished without sending a single distress signal. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members who had remained silent enemies for centuries suddenly found themselves united in shock. The insectoid hive queen Zecta clicked her mandibles nervously, while the gaseous nebula collective's representative flickered between colors of confusion and fear. Director Kim Tae-ho stood motionless at his monitoring station, surrounded by floating holographic displays that painted his weathered face in blue light. The 53-year-old Korean human had spent 30 years climbing the ranks of galactic intelligence, earning respect through careful analysis rather than political maneuvering. His dark eyes moved methodically across the data streams, searching for patterns that others might miss. The Draconians weren't just another military force. They were the galaxy's apex predators, 8-foot-tall reptilian warriors whose scales could deflect plasma bolts and whose ships carried weapons capable of cracking moons. In 500 years of expansion, no civilization had ever successfully resisted their initial assault. Their fleet doctrine was simple and brutal. Arrive, demand surrender, and if refused, reduce the target world to ash within 6 hours. Director Kim, called Councillor Yeshka from the Andromedan Collective, her melodic voice cutting through the noise. What was the fleet's last confirmed position? Tae-ho manipulated the central hologram, expanding it to show the outer rim of the galaxy. A small yellow star appeared, surrounded by several planets. Sol System Outer Spiral Arm. Fleet Commander Vexcor transmitted standard conquest protocols 14 standard days ago. The target world was designated as Earth, inhabited by primitive bipedal mammals who had barely achieved nuclear fusion. Primitives? Ambassador Veltar's voice dripped with skepticism. Commander Vexcor has personally conquered 47 worlds. He wouldn't disappear fighting Stone Age savages. The chamber's attention focused on the holographic display showing Earth. It appeared unremarkable. A blue and green world with white cloud formations, electromagnetic signatures indicating basic radio communication, and energy readings suggesting early industrial civilization. By galactic standards, its inhabitants should have been using wooden clubs and fire. Councillor Ethak, her serpentine form coiled around her floating seat, raised her scaled head. Perhaps the Draconians are simply being thorough. Some worlds require extended subjugation periods. Several council members nodded in agreement, but Tae-ho's expression remained grave. He had studied Draconian tactics for decades, analyzing their conquest patterns across hundreds of worlds. They were efficient predators who valued speed over completeness. Respectfully, Councillor, that's impossible, Tae-ho replied, calling up tactical data that filled the air with three-dimensional battle formations. Draconian doctrine demands rapid, overwhelming force. They carry enough firepower to sterilize a continent in minutes. Even if Earth's inhabitants possessed hidden defenses, the fleet should have reported contact. The hologram shifted to show the Draconian Third Fleet's composition, 300 warships ranging from kilometer-long battle cruisers to nimble fighter squadrons. Each vessel carried enough destructive power to level cities, and together they represented one of the most formidable military forces in known space. "We cannot simply ignore this," declared High Arbiter Colthex, his rocky form grinding against itself as he moved. "If something has eliminated an entire Draconian fleet, it represents a threat to galactic stability." Tae-ho nodded and gestured to another display. "I've already dispatched 12 reconnaissance probes equipped with our most advanced sensors and communication arrays. Each probe was programmed to maintain contact every 30 minutes and retreat immediately if they encountered hostile forces. The chamber fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems and the occasional click or whistle from various alien respiratory systems. Even the most aggressive species present understood the implications of what they were hearing. "What did the probes discover?" whispered Ambassador Veltar, his earlier rage replaced by growing dread. Teho's expression darkened as he pulled up the final display. 12 probe signatures that had each winked out of existence upon reaching Earth's immediate vicinity. No. Final transmissions, no sensor data, no explanation. All 12 probes went completely silent the moment they entered Earth's local space, he reported. Whatever eliminated the Draconian fleet is still active, and it's capable of neutralizing our most advanced reconnaissance technology without allowing even a millisecond of warning. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. Something existed in that distant system that could make the galaxy's most feared military force simply cease to exist, and now it had demonstrated the ability to effortlessly destroy their attempts to investigate. Terror spread through the chamber as thousands of alien minds grappled with a horrifying possibility. They had discovered something that could end galactic civilization itself. The Concordia emerged from hyperspace like a metallic leviathan breaking the surface of an ocean. Its 3-kilometer hull bore the scars of a dozen major battles, each section representing the pinnacle of different alien technologies fused into one devastating war machine. Zephyrian crystal armor plating gleamed alongside Vorthan energy conduits, while Terran computational cores processed data through Andromedan quantum networks. Admiral Chris stood on the bridge, his crystalline form refracting the soft blue light from the command displays. The Zephyrian had spent 40 years fighting in the galaxy's bloodiest conflicts, earning his rank through tactical brilliance and an unwavering ability to remain calm under fire. His translucent skin showed veins of silver that pulsed with his alien heartbeat, and his faceted eyes could process visual information across 17 different spectrums simultaneously. "Drop us to sublight and begin passive scanning," he commanded, his voice resonating like wind chimes in a storm. "I want to know what happened here before we announce our presence." Colonel Park Ji-woo moved between the various control stations with practiced efficiency. The 42-year-old Korean officer had served as strategic advisor on 6 different galactic missions, his reputation for analyzing impossible situations having earned him a place aboard the Council's most elite vessels. His weathered hands danced across holographic interfaces that responded to both touch and thought, pulling data from sensors that could detect a single atom across light-years of space. "Debris field confirmed," Park reported, his voice steady, despite the growing knot in his stomach. "Composition matches Draconian titanium alloys, quantum steel plating, and bio-neural circuitry. We're looking at the remains of at least 50 major warships." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Destroying 50 Draconian warships would require a fleet of several thousand vessels or weapons of unimaginable power. Yet their sensors showed no signs of an opposing fleet, no energy weapon discharge residue, nothing that indicated a conventional battle had taken place. Lieutenant Commander Han So-ra looked up from the science station, her young face pale with confusion. The 28-year-old quantum physicist had graduated top of her class from the Galactic Academy, specializing in energy pattern analysis and exotic matter detection. Her fingers trembled slightly as she recalibrated her instruments for the 3rd time. "Admiral, the debris pattern is completely wrong," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "These ships weren't destroyed by weapons fire. The metal has been rearranged, like something just decided the ship should be scattered particles instead of solid matter." Through the massive viewport that dominated the bridge's forward section, Earth hung in space like a perfect blue marble. White clouds swirled across continents, green with vegetation, while city lights twinkled on the night side like scattered diamonds. Radio waves leaked from the planet's surface, carrying primitive entertainment broadcasts and military communications that suggested a civilization still using chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. "It's impossible," muttered Chief Engineer Vextel, his mechanical body clicking as servo motors adjusted his position. The cyborg had analyzed the wreckage of 10,000 destroyed vessels throughout his career, but nothing in his extensive database matched what he was seeing. The energy required to disintegrate ships this size would be visible from neighboring star systems. Park continued his analysis, pulling up tactical displays that showed the last known positions of each Draconian vessel. According to fleet records, they maintained standard attack formation until they reached Earth's orbital space. Then the signals just stopped. All 300 ships simultaneously went silent. "No distress calls?" Admiral Chris asked, though he already knew the answer. Nothing. Not even automated emergency beacons. It's as if the entire fleet simply decided to stop existing. The science station began emitting urgent warning tones as Han Sora's instruments detected something that shouldn't be possible. Her console lit up with energy readings that made her question whether her equipment was malfunctioning or if reality itself had broken down. "Admiral, I'm reading massive energy signatures emanating from multiple points on Earth's surface," she reported, her voice growing steadier as scientific curiosity began to override her fear. "The power outputs they're exceeding our primary fusion reactor by factors I can't even calculate properly." Admiral Chris moved to her station, his crystalline eyes scanning the data with growing amazement. The readings showed energy generation that rivaled the output of small stars, yet coming from what appeared to be ordinary human settlements. According to every intelligence report in their database, humans had barely achieved controlled nuclear fusion and were still using primitive combustion engines for most of their transportation. "Could there be another species living on Earth?" Park suggested, though his tone indicated he didn't believe his own words. "Perhaps using humans as a cover." Sora shook her head while manipulating the sensor data into three-dimensional displays that filled the air around them. "The energy signatures are coming from areas with high human population density. Whatever is generating this power, it's integrated into their civilization." The tactical officer, a multi-armed Nexarian named Kelthis, looked up from his weapon control systems with obvious confusion. His species had evolved as hunters, their natural instincts finely tuned to detect threats and analyze combat potential. Everything about Earth appeared harmless, yet his survival instincts screamed danger. "Admiral, recommend we maintain maximum safe distance," Kelthis advised, his forearms moving across different control panels simultaneously. Unknown capabilities of this magnitude represent an extreme threat to ship safety, but Admiral Chris found himself staring at Earth with growing fascination rather than fear. In 40 years of military service, he had encountered energy beings capable of destroying planets, machine intelligences that could rewrite matter at the quantum level, and ancient weapons left behind by extinct civilizations. None of them had simply made an entire Draconian fleet disappear without leaving any trace of the method used. "Colonel Park, what do our cultural databases tell us about human behavior patterns?" he asked. Park called up anthropological data that painted a picture of a young species barely 10,000 years removed from primitive hunter-gatherer societies. Highly aggressive, territorially motivated, with strong tribal instincts, they've been in a state of almost constant warfare throughout their recorded history. Most recent conflicts involved nuclear weapons and chemical warfare. "And yet," Admiral Chris murmured, his eyes reflecting the blue light of Earth's oceans, "they somehow convinced 300 Draconian warships to simply cease existing without firing a single shot in response." The implications hung in the recycled air of the bridge like a toxic cloud. Either their instruments were lying, their intelligence was completely wrong, or humanity possessed capabilities that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy, while appearing to be harmless primitives, still struggling to leave their homeworld. The bridge of the Concordia fell silent as the main communication array activated without any input from the crew. A soft chime echoed through the crystalline chambers, followed by a gentle hum that seemed to harmonize with the ship's own power systems. Every alien present felt their skin prickle with an inexplicable sensation, as if something vast and intelligent had just noticed their presence. The holographic display shimmered to life, revealing a face that immediately caught everyone off guard. Dr. Lee Minji appeared to be in her early 50s, with silver streaks threading through her black hair and laugh lines around her warm brown eyes. She wore a simple white lab coat over casual clothing, sitting in what looked like an ordinary office with bookshelves and a window, showing blue skies and green trees. "Greetings, Admiral Chris and crew of the Concordia," she said, her voice carrying a gentle authority that somehow made the massive alien warriors on the bridge feel like children who had been caught sneaking into a restricted area. "I am Dr. Lee Minji, Earth's Director of Extraterrestrial Relations. We've been expecting your arrival." Admiral Chris felt his crystalline structure vibrate with shock. His faceted eyes processed the impossible implications of what he was hearing, while his tactical mind raced through dozens of scenarios. How could this primitive world know their ship's name? How could they have activated a communication channel that required quantum-encrypted authorization codes? "Expecting us," he managed to say, his wind chime voice betraying his confusion. "How is that possible? We only decided to investigate this system 3 standard days ago." Dr. Lee smiled with the patient expression of a teacher explaining a simple concept to a struggling student. "We've been monitoring galactic communication networks for quite some time, Admiral. Your civilization isn't particularly subtle about its transmissions. We knew about the Galactic Council's decision to send an investigation team approximately 4 minutes after your emergency session concluded." Colonel Park stepped forward, his strategic mind trying to process information that challenged everything. He knew about technological development. The humans shouldn't even have radio telescopes capable of detecting signals from beyond their solar system. Yet this woman claimed they had been eavesdropping on encrypted military communications across thousands of light years. "Dr. Lee," he said carefully, "our records indicate that your species has barely achieved nuclear fusion. How are you intercepting quantum-encrypted transmissions?" "Oh, that's quite simple, really," she replied with a dismissive wave. "Dr. Kim Dong-Hyun solved quantum communication paradoxes about 15 years ago. Once you understand that information doesn't actually travel through space, but rather exists simultaneously across multiple dimensional states, the rest becomes rather straightforward mathematics." Lieutenant Commander Han So-ra nearly fell over her console. As a quantum physicist, she understood enough about the theoretical framework to realize that what Dr. Lee was describing represented advances that should have taken galactic civilization another 1,000 years to achieve. But that's impossible. Zora whispered. The computational power required to map dimensional states across galactic distances would require energy output equivalent to a small star. Dr. Lee's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Energy is only a limitation if you insist on thinking in 3 dimensions, dear." Dr. Park Si-jun figured out how to borrow power from parallel timelines back in 2019. It's really quite efficient once you get the hang of it. The casual way she discussed concepts that violated fundamental laws of physics made Admiral Chris feel like his crystalline structure might shatter from pure cognitive overload. But he forced himself to focus on the primary mission objective. "Dr. Lee, we came here to investigate the disappearance of a Draconian assault fleet. 300 warships carrying 50,000 warriors simply vanished after entering your system." "Ah, yes, the Draconians," Dr. Lee nodded thoughtfully. "Fascinating species, really. Their bio-neural ship networks were quite ingenious, though. Terribly aggressive in their applications. They arrived 2 weeks ago, demanding our immediate surrender." "And?" Colonel Park prompted, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to hear the answer. "We tried to explain that violence was unnecessary," Dr. Lee continued with the tone of someone recounting a minor neighborhood disagreement. "We offered them detailed information about sustainable agricultural techniques that would provide far more resources than conquest. We even prepared cultural exchange programs and offered to share some of our medical advances that could extend their lifespans by several centuries." Chief Engineer Vextol's mechanical body whirred as his processors struggled to integrate this information. What was their response? Dr. Lee sighed sadly. They activated their planetary bombardment systems and began charging their continent-killer weapons. "We really hoped they would choose the peaceful option." "So you destroyed them?" Admiral Chris asked, though something in her expression suggested the reality was far more complex. "Destroyed?" "Oh goodness, no," Dr. Lee laughed, the sound somehow both musical and slightly terrifying. "That would have been wasteful. Dr. Choi Jae-min simply convinced their ship's navigation systems that they were in a completely different part of the galaxy, somewhere with lovely uninhabited worlds perfect for agricultural development. The bridge crew exchanged glances of pure bewilderment. The casual way she described relocating an entire fleet across interstellar distances made it sound like moving furniture from one room to another. "You relocated them?" Park managed to ask. "Well, yes. Their warrior culture was clearly causing them psychological distress. Dr. Kim Min-soo ran some behavioral analysis and determined they would be much happier as farmers, so we found them. Some nice planets with good soil and favorable growing conditions. They've been sending us thank you letters, actually. Apparently growing vegetables is much more satisfying than blowing up cities." Lieutenant Commander Han So-ra felt her worldview crumbling as she realized the implications. "You reformed an entire civilization of genocidal warriors by relocating them to farming planets?" "Oh, it was quite a bit more complex than that," Dr. Lee admitted. Dr. Yang Hyun-suk had to write some new psychological conditioning protocols, and Dr. Lim Tae-young needed to adjust their brain chemistry to reduce aggressive impulses. But yes, essentially we helped them discover their true passion for agriculture. Admiral Chris stared at this unassuming human woman who spoke about rewriting the fundamental nature of galactic civilization's most feared predators as if it were a weekend hobby project. The most terrifying part wasn't what she was saying, but the genuine warmth and concern in her voice, as if she truly believed she had done the Draconians a favor. "Would you like to visit one of our research facilities?" Dr. Lee asked brightly. "Dr. Cho Hyun-woo would be absolutely delighted to show you around. I think you'd find our work quite interesting." The transport shuttle descended through Earth's PE atmosphere like a falling star, its alien hull systems automatically adjusting to the planet's gravitational field and atmospheric composition. Admiral Chris pressed his crystalline face against the viewport, watching mountains and deserts scroll past below. Everything looked perfectly normal, exactly what their intelligence reports had suggested. A primitive world with scattered cities and basic transportation networks. The landing site appeared to be nothing more than empty desert, sand dunes stretching to the horizon under a blazing sun. But as their shuttle touched down, the ground beneath them shimmered like water and began to descend. What had appeared to be solid Earth was actually a sophisticated holographic camouflage hiding a massive elevator platform that carried them deep underground. Dr. Cho Hyun-woo waited for them at the bottom, a man in his early 30s with bright eyes and a smile that seemed to radiate pure excitement about everything around him. He wore a simple lab coat, covered in what looked like coffee stains and equation scribbles, bouncing slightly on his feet as the alien delegation emerged from their shuttle. "Welcome to Research Complex 7, he announced cheerfully, gesturing toward corridors that stretched away in directions that shouldn't have been possible given the elevator's dimensions. "I know it looks a bit cramped, but we've made some adjustments to the local spatial geometry. Much more efficient this way." Colonel Park stepped forward cautiously, his military training screaming warnings about impossible architecture. The corridor walls appeared to curve away from them, yet somehow remained perfectly straight. Distance seemed flexible here, as if the very concept of measurement had become negotiable. "Dr. Cho, how large is this facility?" he asked, trying to maintain his composure while his inner ear reported conflicting information about which direction was up. "Oh, about 47,000 cubic kilometers," Dr. Cho replied casually, as if discussing the size of a small office. "We had to expand into 11 different dimensional layers to fit everything. Dr. Shin Min-ho designed the spatial folding system. Brilliant work, really." Admiral Chris felt his crystalline structure vibrate with disbelief. The human was describing a facility larger than most space stations, somehow compressed into a space that from the outside appeared to be empty desert. His tactical mind tried to process the defensive implications, while his scientific understanding screamed that such technology should be impossible. They passed through a chamber where young technicians worked with devices that looked like children's toys but apparently manipulated matter at the atomic level. A woman named Dr. Jung Soo-young was casually rearranging carbon atoms into diamond formations with a handheld device no larger than a pencil, humming softly to herself as she worked. Matter manipulation is really quite simple once you understand that atoms are just probabilities rather than fixed objects, Dr. Cho explained. Noticing their stares, Dr. Bei Jinwoo figured out how to convince electrons that they wanted to be in different locations. After that, chemistry becomes more like friendly conversation than rigid science. Lieutenant Commander Han So-ra watched in fascination as another technician dissolved a steel beam into component atoms, sorted them by element, and then reconstructed them into a perfect sculpture of a flowering tree. The entire process took less than 30 seconds and appeared to require no more effort than stirring coffee. The energy requirements alone, she whispered, her quantum physics training struggling to process what she was witnessing. Oh, that's the beauty of it, Dr. Cho grinned. Once you stop fighting against natural processes and start working with them, energy becomes almost free. Dr. No Sung-min discovered that reality is much more cooperative than most people assume. They continued deeper into the facility, passing laboratories where scientists worked on projects that redefined the boundaries of possibility. In one room, a team led by Dr. Yoon Da-hai was testing what appeared to be a simple closet door. When she opened it, the space beyond extended into a hangar large enough to hold several starships. Dimensional storage, Dr. Cho explained cheerfully. We've been using it for years now. Much more convenient than traditional warehouses, and the maintenance costs are practically nothing. Colonel Park stared into the impossible space, watching. Technicians move around what appeared to be dismantled Draconian warships. The alien vessels had been carefully taken apart, their components sorted and catalogued like specimens in a museum. Is that, he began, recognizing the distinctive bio-neural architecture of Draconian technology. Part of the fleet that visited us, yes, Dr. Cho nodded enthusiastically. Fascinating engineering, really. Their biological computer systems were quite advanced, though they had some unfortunate programming that encouraged violent solutions to complex problems. Admiral Chris moved closer to examine the salvaged technology. These weren't battle-damaged remains, but perfectly preserved components that had been methodically disassembled by experts who understood the technology better than its original creators. What happened to the crews? He asked, though he was beginning. To suspect the answer would be as impossible as everything else in this place. Dr. Cho's face lit up with genuine pleasure. Oh, that was Dr. Kang Soo-jin's masterpiece. She specializes in space-time mechanics and psychological rehabilitation. The Draconians were suffering from severe cultural conditioning that made them believe violence was their only option for resource acquisition. He manipulated a holographic display that filled the air around them with images of lush green worlds dotted with agricultural settlements. Scaled figures that were unmistakably Draconian could be seen tending crops and operating farming equipment, their postures relaxed and content in a way that seemed impossible for the galaxy's most feared warriors. We relocated them to a star system with perfect growing conditions and helped them discover their natural aptitude for sustainable agriculture, Dr. Cho continued. It turns out that their aggressive instincts translate beautifully into passionate dedication when redirected toward nurturing rather than destroying. The hologram zoomed in to show individual Draconians working in vast gardens, their powerful claws delicately tending to plants while their young learned agricultural techniques from elder farmers. It was a scene of peaceful productivity that no one in the galaxy would have believed possible. They were grateful? Colonel Park asked weakly. Oh, tremendously so, Dr. Cho beamed. Their leader, Vexscore, sent us the most wonderful letter thanking us for showing them a better way to live. He said that growing food for people brings him more satisfaction than he ever found in conquest. Who would have thought? Admiral Chris stared at the peaceful scenes of former galactic predators living as contented farmers, realizing that humanity hadn't simply defeated their enemies. They had fundamentally transformed them into better versions of themselves, offering redemption rather than destruction. The most terrifying part wasn't the impossible technology or the casual manipulation of space and time. It was the genuine care and compassion these humans showed for beings who had come to destroy their world. They had responded to genocidal aggression with healing, turning their greatest enemies into grateful friends through the simple act of helping them become who they were truly meant to be. The Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never hosted such a gathering in its 1,000-year history. Representatives from every known civilization packed the crystalline amphitheater, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. Ancient enemies sat beside former allies, united by shared uncertainty about what humanity's emergence meant for their futures. Emperor Zakthul of the hegemony dominated the central platform, his massive form scarred by centuries of warfare. The reptilian warlord's cybernetic implants glowed red, with barely contained aggression, yet his hands trembled as he stared at the two humans standing calmly before thousands of the galaxy's most powerful beings. Dr. Li Minji appeared remarkably, composed for someone addressing an assembly that could order the destruction of entire star systems. Her simple business attire seemed almost quaint, compared to the elaborate ceremonial armor and technological augmentations worn by the alien dignitaries surrounding her. Beside her, Dr. Kim Jae-hyun adjusted his glasses nervously while carrying a briefcase that several intelligence agencies suspected contained enough technological secrets to revolutionize galactic civilization. Honored representatives, Dr. Lee began, her voice carrying clearly through translation systems that converted her words into thousands of different languages simultaneously. We appreciate this opportunity to address your concerns about humanity's place in the galactic community. A wave of nervous chittering, mechanical whirring, and psionic emanations rippled through the assembly. The insectoid collective's queen clicked her mandibles anxiously, while the energy beings of the stellar nexus flickered between colors of fear and curiosity. Queen Vexithara of the Andromedan Empire rose from her floating throne, her serpentine form coiling with visible tension. Dr. Lee, our intelligence reports indicate that your species possesses technological capabilities that exceed our most advanced civilizations. Yet according to all previous data, humans achieved spaceflight mere decades ago. Dr. Kim stepped forward with a gentle smile that somehow made the assembled warriors and conquerors feel like children caught misbehaving. Your Majesty raises an excellent point. We've been selective about revealing our true capabilities. We wanted to observe galactic civilization and understand its dynamics before making contact. Observe us? Emperor Zakthul's voice boomed. Through the chamber, his mechanical throat implants adding an ominous harmonic resonance. For how long? About 300 years, Dr. Lee replied matter-of-factly. We've been monitoring galactic communications, studying your conflicts and learning about different species' needs and challenges. It's been quite educational. The admission sent shockwaves through the assembly. 3 centuries of supposed privacy had been an illusion, with humans quietly watching and analyzing every major galactic event from their seemingly primitive world. Admiral Chris stood from his position in the observer section, his crystalline form refracting the chambers, lights into rainbow patterns. I have personally witnessed human facilities that casually manipulate space-time, convert matter at the atomic level, and relocate entire fleets across interstellar distances. These beings could eliminate any threat in the galaxy without breaking stride. Then what do you want from us? Emperor Zakthul demanded, his scarred features twisting with the fear that had plagued galactic leaders since Admiral Chris's initial report. Tribute? Submission? Territory? Dr. Kim's expression softened with genuine warmth. We want friendship, partnership. We've spent centuries watching you struggle with problems we solved long ago. Energy scarcity, environmental collapse, resource, conflicts, territorial disputes. We have solutions for all of it. He opened his briefcase and activated a holographic projector that filled the air above the assembly with images of technological marvels. Dead worlds transformed into garden paradises through terraforming techniques that worked in harmony with natural processes. Energy generators that drew power from dimensional barriers between parallel universes. Medical technologies that could restore entire ecosystems while healing individual organisms at the cellular level. We've developed educational programs that could advance your civilizations by thousands of years, Dr. Lee added, gesturing to displays showing alien children, learning alongside human instructors, not by giving you technology, but by teaching you to understand the universe in ways that make advanced technology inevitable." Counselor Ethak, her serpentine form trembling with disbelief, raised her voice. "Why would you share such advantages?" "What do you gain?" "Happy neighbors," Dr. Kim replied simply. "We've learned that the universe is much more enjoyable when everyone is prospering. Conflict arises from scarcity and misunderstanding. Remove those conditions, and cooperation becomes natural." The assembly erupted in heated discussions as representatives tried to process the implications. The hive mind collective buzzed with rapid-fire data exchanges, while the machine intelligence network ran probability calculations that consistently returned impossible results. Admiral Chris rose again, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had witnessed the impossible. "Firsthand, I've seen what they offer. The Draconian Empire's Third Fleet, the galaxy's most feared military force, now operates successful agricultural cooperatives on worlds they chose freely. They weren't conquered or destroyed. They were shown a better way to live and chose it willingly." Months later, the transformation of galactic civilization began in earnest. Human technical advisors worked alongside alien scientists, teaching sustainable energy production that eliminated resource conflicts. Environmental restoration teams traveled to dying worlds, using techniques that accelerated natural healing processes by centuries. The most remarkable changes occurred in species-to-species relations. Ancient enemies discovered that with unlimited, clean energy and abundant resources, territorial disputes became meaningless. The Zephyrian crystal states and the silicon-based collective, who had fought for millennia over rare mineral deposits, found themselves working together on joint exploration projects using human spatial folding technology that made resource scarcity obsolete. Former Draconian Fleet Commander Vexcor sent his monthly report to the Galactic Agricultural Council, his scaled hands surprisingly gentle as he wrote about crop rotation techniques and sustainable farming practices. "The humans taught us that strength isn't about taking from others," he noted in his personal addendum. "True power comes from helping things grow." Educational exchanges flourished as young beings from across the galaxy attended human universities that existed in folded dimensions, learning not just advanced technology, but new ways of thinking about existence itself. They returned home with knowledge that sparked Renaissance periods in civilizations that had remained stagnant for millennia. The greatest revelation came when humans began sharing their most profound discovery. The universe itself was conscious and cooperative, willing to bend its rules for beings who approached it with curiosity rather than aggression. This philosophical breakthrough transformed not just technology, but the fundamental way galactic civilization understood reality. Within a single generation, the galaxy had become an unrecognizable place. Wars became extinct as species learned to solve conflicts through collaboration rather than conquest. Environmental destruction ended as civilizations adopted human techniques that worked with natural processes instead of against them. Exploration flourished as dimensional travel made the farthest reaches of space easily accessible to anyone with curiosity about what lay beyond the next star. Humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had made the universe a better place not through conquest or domination, but through the simple act of caring enough to help. The most terrifying force in existence had turned out to be genuine kindness, backed by impossible competence, transforming former enemies into grateful friends and creating a galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than competition. The end.